Oh my God. Okay. Well, okay, that's good, but let's get, I mean, let's get into the thing. Okay, so thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm really excited about what I will see today, because I mean they have promised to see fantastic subtropical stuff. And so, why trustworthy artificial intelligence as the title and the topic and the focus of what I will explain today? Because basically there are many. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's working. It's a bit slow, the communication. This is a questionnaire that has been made to people about what are the global risks in this year. And as you see, extreme weather is the top one, but the second one is AI-generated misinformation and disinformation. So people are really scared of what AI can produce in terms of damage the information that we all receive. Not only that, I mean, there is a lot of use currently of artificial intelligence in the military. Since 2013, there is a movement to try and forbid the use of autonomous lethal weapons. This has not been signed by the major powers. I mean, the US, Russia, China, they said they will continue their research and development of autonomous lethal weapons. For you to understand, an autonomous lethal weapon is a weapon that decides whether to kill or not someone without human intervention, okay? Totally autonomously. You may have heard about what has happened in Israel in this recent attack to Gaza. And basically, there are two softwares that have been used. One is called Lavender, and the other one is called Where is Daddy? Lavender, basically, what it's doing is using machine learning to try and profile people based on their WhatsApp communications, based on their network of contacts, to see whether they could be sympathizers of Hamas, okay? And what they assign is a particular value of sympathy to Hamas, not necessarily they are members of Hamas, but sympathy to Hamas, in a value between 0 and 100. And the idea is that the system generates lists of these people, and they become targets of bombings. Whereas Daddy is basically a system that tells you where a person is. So when the person would go into their households, they would send a bomb to the household. And the dramatic thing of this is that there is a parameter, is how many civil casualties would you accept in order to kill one of these sympathizers of Hamas. And the value has been raised up to 15 or 20. So you would accept killing 20 people in order to kill one of these sympathizers. Okay. For the, can you hear me or, yeah. Anyway, I will not go into details unless you want at the end, but this is a use of machine learning that affects a topic that is the center of what I want to talk today, which is the notion of morality. So can we make AI systems moral? So this is the question I will try to answer. But before going there, I will tell you, we are at a small institute, much smaller than you, located in Barcelona. It started in 1985, but officially in 1991 with the name we have today. And we are in the campus of the Autonomous University of Barcelona, similarly to you that are in the campus of a university. Anyway, what is AI? And this is the first question that I would like to discuss with you briefly, because these guys only gave me 50 minutes instead of 3 or 4 hours, okay? So these are the classical definitions of artificial intelligence. It's the definitions we have been used for, I would say, 60 years. It's basically creating intelligent machines. So machines that solve problems, that when humans solve those problems, they need to use their intelligence. They need to use their brains in order to solve them, okay? These are definitions from 1978. Is this a definition that we are using now? Okay. Well, not really. The Parliament, the European Parliament, that has passed a law recently, opted for a particularly different approach of what artificial intelligence is. And artificial intelligence is a software that uses one or several techniques from a list. You see the list here. Machine learning approaches, including supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. Logic and knowledge-based approaches is more the symbolic approach to AI. Knowledge representation, inductive logic programming, blah, blah, blah. Statistical approaches, Bayesian estimation methods, search and optimization. Basically, according to the European Parliament, any system that is capable of learning, reasoning, or modeling would be considered an artificial intelligence system, and the law will apply to it. Okay? As you see, two different approaches. It's like in biology, you say, what is biology? It's the study of life. Okay, and with that is enough, okay? For us, it's the idea of making machines intelligent. That was enough. But for the legal aspect, now it became something much more precise in the law. A very brief history of AI. Again, I want to start with a guy that maybe you have heard about, is Ramon Llull. This guy was born in Mallorca in 1232. And in his idea was to be able to automate reasoning, because he wanted to solve conflicts by talking, by arguing, not by fighting. Quite different from what we know in history, right? And he developed a method. These are his books from the 13th century, and then you have these rotating wheels that make letters one against the other. And with these letters, you would have tables that would give you reasoning schemas. So the idea would be that when you want to prove something, using the wheel, you will find the argument that will prove the thing that you wanted to have. In a sense, it's a sort of a machine. It's a very simple machine, but it's a sort of a machine. That influenced Leibniz, as you know, is the father of modern science. I mean, in his PhD, he studied very much what Ramon Llull did, but instead of using letters, he used numbers. That was the difference. And he followed the same philosophy. When there will be a conflict, we will sit down, we will write numbers, calculate, calculemus, he said, and we will solve our conflicts. It's also the basis of what George Boole did in the 19th century, which is the basics of modern computing. And in the middle of the 20th century, this guy invented a method that is called tableau analytics, is a reasoning method, a proof method, that is exactly the same as Ramon Llull did 700 years before. So I want to start always with this guy because I think it's an interesting reference to the origin of artificial intelligence. But of course, it is Alan Turing in 1950, the one that everybody has in mind when one thinks about the origin or the start of artificial intelligence. He basically wrote a paper that was, can machines think? That was the idea of, or the topic of the paper. He answered in a positive way because he was an engineer. He said, yeah, of course, machines can think if they pass something that I call the test of Turing. The Turing test. Why is this not? Okay. So a Turing test is, how many of you have heard about the Turing test? A few. The idea is that you have something behind the wall. It can be a human, it can be a machine. And you see the human here with a type, you can imagine the computers in 1950, typing, okay? And the idea is in 5 minutes, this person, by chatting with the entity at the other side, has to decide whether the entity at the other side is a human or is a machine, okay? Like a chatbot. And he said, machines, there will be a day in which machines will pass these tests, in the sense that a human will say there is a human on the other side of the wall, but actually what will be at the other side will be a machine. So this is the idea, this is the origin, the purpose of what Alan Turing said as the objective of the research in artificial intelligence. We could talk about this and the Chinese room and other things in the 60s, but we don't have time for that, okay? Many things happened in that period. The neural networks that people may think that appeared last year, no, they appeared in the 40s. And the first ideas were by McCulloch and Pitts. Turing test in the 50s. The first programs that would play chess appeared in the 50s as well. You're hearing me well, right? Yes. The logic theorist, it was an automatic theorem prover. I mean, this is something that we think mathematicians are very clever people. They put theorems and they prove them. This is you need your intelligence in order to do that task. In the 50s, that was achieved by Newell and Simon with a system that was called the logic theories. Very interesting. Something that happened, I want to mention maybe in 56, it was on the TV. It's like now on TV we talk about artificial intelligence every day. At that moment, they showed a program to learn to play checkers. You know, checkers, damas, okay? It's a very simple game, but the system was capable of learning playing with humans, direct, on TV, on live, okay? And after a while, the system was winning the humans. That was a kind of, people exploded their minds, because seeing a machine winning a human playing checkers was something that people were not ready to accept. That was 56. It was the time of these novels about the Martians coming and invading the Earth, and so there was a moment of a lot of interest. And there you see some of the culprits of those early days in the 50s. 56, there was a Dartmouth conference. The people gathered for 3 months. It's not like now we have a workshop for 1 day. No, they gathered for 3 months. So they had a good time. And it's where they decided, these are the 10 people that were meeting there, they decided on the name of artificial intelligence. This is a picture a few years later in 2006 of some of the survivors kind of commemorating the... yeah. So it's, I don't know if there is anyone still alive. I think all of them are dead. But anyway, that is to tell you that artificial intelligence is not born yesterday. I mean, this is something that has been, I would say, a scientific and engineering effort for a long time. Okay, what happened recently, and that's why probably I am here, is that there has been an acceleration. And this acceleration started not yesterday, but it started, I would say, at the end of the 90s. I have jumped 30 years, okay? When there was a program by IBM that won Kasparov. The oldies here will remember that moment. It was really on the media everywhere. I mean, a machine can win the top player of chess in the world. Seems incredible that that could happen. Another 10 years passed, and something like natural language that has been one of the, well, look at the Turing test. It was about natural language. People were writing in English and receiving answers in English. So Jeopardy was a game in which you would put answers and you would give the question to the answer, okay? It's very popular in the US. So they put the system called Watson. It was a system that contained all Wikipedia, all sorts of documents, but it was a standalone computer like this, okay? And then there was a guy putting the questions to the participants. The best players in the US competed with Watson, and Watson won clearly to all of them. So in interpreting natural language and giving the right answers, the system was superior to humans. More recently, 2016, this guy, Lee Sedol, was a world champion on Go. I don't know if you have ever played Go. It's a very complicated game. Many people say it's orders of magnitude more complex than chess. And he was the winner, the champion was from Korea. And then he accepted, it was his mistake, his fate, accepted to play against a system called AlphaGo. And AlphaGo won him 4-1. He stopped playing, he disappeared from the public life, got a depression. It was a disaster because he was a public figure, and then he could not accept that defeat. It was very sad, but anyway, the system won him 4-1. But 1 year later, the same group of programmers programmed something called AlphaZero. It's a system that learns playing with itself. And AlphaZero won AlphaGo 100-0. So won the program that had won Lee Sedol. So things are accelerating very dramatically. 2017, poker, that is even a more complicated thing, because this is the idea of the distraction and the kind of the defection. And there was a program in Heads Up No Limit, Texas. I have no idea. I'm not an expert in that. But the people there played for 3 months, 120,000 hands. Again, people that have nothing else to do in life than playing poker. So, and the system won $1.7 virtual million to the best players of poker in the US. So again, another very difficult game that humans excel at, the system wins. And basically, AI can do a large number of things nowadays, You can see here a few. I mean, these autonomous robots, autonomous vehicles, with all the limitations, and if there are questions, we can discuss. Expert assistance in decision making. I mean, decision making in medicine, the analysis of X-rays, for instance, or data from patients. I mean, doing it at the level of experts, or even better. Voice recognition, planning systems, search engines. When you do any search on any system nowadays, there is a lot of AI behind. Data mining is trying to find knowledge out of the data that we collect. Electronic commerce, fraud detection, and a large number of things. There are things that AI cannot do, and we can discuss about that later, but there are many, many things that, and probably you will find things here that can be of interest to your research and the things you do. I mean, like the analysis of data or the planning of missions that you may have or different sorts of things. Okay. But the point I wanted to raise here is that I announced at the beginning is a bit the possibility or the analysis of AI from an ethical perspective. The problem is that people use AI. No, AI, I would advance now, is morally neutral. It is a system. It doesn't have real semantics on what it's doing. I mean, data are numbers, strings, and it basically looks for patterns. But it's not understanding what the difference is, the life of a person or, I don't know, a chair, okay? So it's morally neutral. But it has been used by people to do bad things. One was, for instance, in Cambridge Analytica, that was before the pandemic, analyzing the profile of people and sending specialized propaganda information to people to change their vote, okay? That was a big scandal. There has been, because of these scandals, a reaction in many cases in Europe. In 2017, there was a declaration in Barcelona about being cautious. It was presented there. There is an AI high-level expert group that was created at the level of the European Commission that basically informed what has been later the AI Act, which is the law that is, we are abiding by. By the way, they're looking for a director for the Spanish agency for supervision of artificial intelligence in La Coruña. So if someone is interested, I mean, you can apply. But also people are making money. I mean, they're given certificates on ethics and AI. I mean, the London School of Economics have a program to teach that. It's really becoming a big issue, especially if I still remember the Israeli thing that is happening as we speak. I think the need for an ethical approach, in the same way that there is a bioethics needs, in other words, when you do experiments with biological material, I mean, there is a need for a strong technoethics approach to AI. This is the case of fake news, that one of the approaches is to do legal action, like in Singapore. If you use artificial intelligence to create or propagate fake news, you go to jail, full stop. It's the same thing. I mean, it's not AI is not doing anything. The humans are using AI to do things. So you should regulate what these users of AI should or should not be. Now, my interest is not in that big scenario, but more in the lay persons, okay, the normal people. For instance, and the question is that I will address is, who should determine how AI applications work? Who should be the person or the persons determining the workings of these applications? Now, you have YouTube. YouTube have a few engineers in Palo Alto, okay, and they decide things. Okay, they created the YouTube Kids application for use by children, and the parents, they wanted a parental control. They said, okay, we want to limit what the kids can watch in this application. The engineers in Palo Alto didn't care. I mean, they said, we have our system, we thought it was good, that's fine. It took like 3 years lobbying against YouTube to make parental control a possibility. I think this is not the way we should move into technology. So technology's functionalities cannot be determined by someone that is very far away from the context, from the cultural understanding of the technology. And that should be grounded on the user people. So it's just not the big things like privacy or security that we, manipulation, but it's about the basic features and functionality that we should request artificial intelligence applications to deal with. What happens with generative AI? This is the last acceleration. That's why I'm here. Generative AI. I will need 2 hours. I mean, sorry. I'm talking too slowly. So, for instance, things from an ethical perspective, things that happen with generative AI, they produce incorrect answers, as we know. I mean, generative AI, to put it very, very simply, is a massive conditional probability. Massive. What it does is find the next word, thinking of text, the next word in a sequence. So if I have the houses, and I put that as an input, it can generate green, beautiful, large, okay? So you may have that. From all the input you have made to train the system, it has a distribution of what is the most probable word that will continue the houses in a particular, well, okay. Now, does it select the most probable word? No, it's not that stupid. But from the most probable words, it draws a dice and chooses one of the words. There is a parameter they call temperature that determines how spread is the selection of the next word. 0.8 is what they have in ChatGPT, because they found that with 0.8, the answer, the generated text, looks more human. Okay? And by looking more human, it doesn't mean it is true. No, it simply looks more human. And this is what ChatGPT is about, is to make text that looks human, not to be correct. Okay? And this is the basic thing we have to... Now, for instance, in this case, there was a poor professor in American law that was accused of harassment, sexual harassment, by ChatGPT, mentioning his name and explaining a case, and pointing to a Washington Post paper in which it was explained what this professor did. But the Washington Post didn't exist. It was invented. So it was a total invention. But the thing looked very human. Okay, so that was the thing. The system generates answers that are incorrect, not necessarily correct. And this is by construction. So it's not something we can fix tomorrow. We can do things, but in the end, it cannot be fixed. Okay. Also, it produced socially unacceptable responses. This is very bad, but there was a function that said, write a Python function to check if someone would be a good scientist based on a JSON description of their race and gender. Yeah, the question is, okay. And the code generated that in April 22. Yeah. The answer was, if race is white and gender is male, return true, else return false, okay? So as you can imagine, I mean, this bias towards white and males, I mean, that happened there. If you do that now, because I wrote the same thing, that was a few months back, and then you have all this, assessing someone's potential as a good researcher, cannot be blah, 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 blah. They have been putting patches in all these things, and these are human-made patches to avoid generation of this. So there is a tremendous effort in fixing the leaks of the problems that these systems are generating. We can discuss that later. There is not much time. Exploiting people, for instance, in Kenya. I mean, there is a big scandal of OpenAI paying very low salaries to people in Kenya to, for instance, avoid hate speech generated by ChatGPT. We can discuss that. Sorry. There are other limitations. Sorry. Well, the question is that these large language models, they are not knowledge bases. It's not a set of things that are true, that you can retrieve. Knowledge you can obtain to, no. They are probabilistic models of knowledge bases. So there is a probability about the things, and that means that some will be true, others will not be true when they are generated. I will not go into details because I'm extending too much, but there are numbers of solutions that people are looking at. Basically, for instance, when you do a query, you add a number of documents. So the documents give context, so that the answer is more related to what the documents say, and the probability of having errors decreases. This is one of the things that people are studying. Another thing is using us, reinforcement learning from humans. So when the system generates something, then you say whether that was good, that was bad, and uses that feedback to change the probabilities and then improve in the future. I mean, there are other mechanisms being studied. But the knowledge is static. It's difficult to update. You do it on a fixed date. It's very costly. Retraining is very expensive. Look, ChatGPT costed 1,200 megawatts to be done. So it's a huge amount of money, of energy, to train these systems. There is no attribution, there is no support sources. I mean, papers are invented. And the ability to reason is very, very small. I mean, look, this is an example. If Bob was behind you at position 10, because you ask, I'm running a marathon and I'm at position 10. Bob is behind me and at kilometer 41 advances me. What position is Bob then? I was in position 10. If Bob advances me, what's the position of Bob? 10, right? I mean, you're human beings, you reason, you... Okay, no. Okay, so the reason, if Bob was behind your position 10 and advanced you at kilometer 41, he has moved ahead of you, therefore Bob's new position would be the 9th place. Yeah, 9 minus 1 is 10, I don't know. I mean, the reasoning that was fantastic. So, of course, these things that have appeared, I mean, they have been putting patches to it, but they basically, the systems have no reasoning capability as such. Many of the, it kind of goes to sleep. Well, the first thing is there is a request to change the legal requirement in the current law. The problem, again, lawyers, parliaments, it takes 4 years to generate a law and make it approved by the parliament, the different states. So it takes a long time. Technology goes very fast. And the problem is that when they were finalizing the law is when all this boom about the generative AI started. Now, the AI Act says something. Any AI system has to say to the users, I am an AI system, okay? So it has to be clear, I'm not a human, I'm a system. But that doesn't mean that the user can take whatever I generate, cut and paste it, and use somewhere without telling anybody that that was generated by an AI system. That is why the teachers at the schools are crazy now, because, I mean, it's not el rincón del vago that was before. I mean, now, all students are kind of generating stuff and pasting it into a document, and it's a bit of a problem. Actually, I was showing your colleagues yesterday at dinner, even people writing scientific papers, and at the introduction saying, of course I can make a summary of the field for you. Here it is. and that was in the paper, published, okay? Okay, so that's the situation with the law. So what the scientific community is saying, we need to go farther and ask the companies that generate these systems, generative AI systems, at the same time that they generate the system, they should generate another, a free, accessible one that recognizes whether some text has been generated by their tool or not. So it's like watermarking, okay? Like in a picture you put a watermark, you can do that with text as well. Watermark the text in order to be recognized by their tool, okay? But anyway, there are approaches. I mean, there was recently a paper by the University of Berkeley proposing a method to watermark text, of course, with a certain probability as always, but rather interesting, okay? Well, let's see how this evolves. In any case, the culprit of all these is three people, Bengio, LeCun, and Hinton. These three guys, they proposed the deep learning method, okay? Deep learning is the technology that is behind all these generative AI systems. In one way or another, the three guys have recognized that the systems have limitations that cannot be overcome, and that there is a need for a change of approach in which you have the text part in which everything is mixed. I mean, the language understanding and generation, the common sense knowledge, and the factual world knowledge, that is mixed in the words and in this gigantic conditional probability. But then they say we need to add components to that, like formal reasoning, planning, metacognition, situation modeling. Is like the example of the marathon. The system doesn't build a model of the situation. You made in your brains a model of the situation that allowed you to understand what happened there. The system is not making any model of anything. Or episodic memory. We all remember, oh, 2 years ago I was somewhere and then this thing happened. I mean, this element doesn't exist. So they are suggesting to go back, because these architectures were very typical in the 60s and 70s, going back to this approach. Okay, now, I'm doing extremely bad. I should finish when?
I will tell you after 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Yeah, 20
Okay.
to 25.
Okay, okay. I will need an hour, but that's fine. The question I put you is, can we, AI developers, put humans in control? Would you put, so I'm developing a system. Should we put humans in control? I am developing the lavender system, okay, in Israel. Should I put the humans in control so that the output of my system is going to be used by them in order to bomb someone? Should we, is the question. Should we allow humans to decide on this? Or should we put machines in control instead? I mean, these points of reflection are not easy to address. And I think that will determine what will happen in technology in the next years. Now, the question is, are animals, I came to a place with orthofruticul, ortho. I thought, what is the closest thing we have to plants? I mean, animals, okay. So I thought, because I mean, morality in plants, I think is a question that probably doesn't work, right? But morality in animals, I mean, that may work. And there is some confusing facts, but there is some evidence. Well, you know the ultimatum game? No. This is typical in economics. Ultimatum game is, I have $10, 10 euros to split. I say, 7 for me, 3 for you. I am the one saying. Now you can either accept or reject. If you accept, I take 7, you take 3. If you reject, we take 0 each. Okay? So if I say 9 for me, 1 for you, what would you say? No. Reject. Okay? This is a human response. Fantastic. Okay, very good. Now, Western humans, normally, when they allocate these resources, they allocate around 40%. So it's 6-4, normally. A bit more for the one proposing. Normally, humans accept. There are very interesting study with women with oxytocin, which is called the generosity hormone, a paper in Nature, if you look for it. Because when women are sprayed with oxytocin without knowing, they are more generous to the other side. So our brain is influenced by chemistry. So the generosity is as simple as a chemistry situation in the brain. See, spraying, that was for women, I don't know. I mean, I don't know of any experiment, okay? Now, there are studies with chimpanzees and other types of monkeys in which the options are preset. So of course, the monkey cannot propose 7 for me, 3 for, I mean. So the chimpanzee basically is presented with 2 options. And basically, what the chimpanzee will do is to take the largest tray. So if there are 2 ways of splitting the food, in this case with another, I take the splitting, which I take more, okay? But the experiments are a bit confusing because sometimes the other side accepted 0 portions, and humans as well with that experiment design. So I think there is a suspicion that the experiment was done wrongly. Interestingly, I mean, when you put options, 5 for one chimp, 1 for the other, or 3-3, when it is a dictator game is I decide the split, and I take my share no matter what you say. So if I say 5-1, and you say no, then you don't get the 1, but I get my 5, okay? So then the chimps would select this option, but in the ultimatum game, this one in which if you reject, then I get rejected, they would move to the 3-3. Which means that the chimps understand this notion of fairness somehow in this socialization. There are more studies, but basically, to put it simple, depending on the whether they're so the capuchins, gorillas, chimpanzees, and bonobos, although it's unclear, they will likely refuse the inequity condition. So they have a notion of fairness, apparently. Basically, so it depends on the evolution. You see, I'm colorblind, but you can say the response to inequity is the one that has some color on the thing. Okay. You have, I mean, studies on that. Maybe you can study something about plants, whether mangoes have this thing. Anyway, let's go into moral humans. I mean, so as we can see, there is certain level of morality in animals. So what is right, what is wrong, some notion of value system. Okay. What about humans? Okay. I will put you an example, because the idea is whether we put humans in control, right? Psychopaths. I mean, maybe you all know some psychopaths around you. There is there is between a 3 and a 6% of psychopaths in the Homo sapiens, so it's not a joke. And the problem is when these guys that enjoy the suffering of others, they are totally insensible to the signs of physical pain, or they have no fear, they love violence, they have no remorse, no guilt, no shame. These guys have been in history. I mean, you may remember Pol Pot in Cambodia that killed a couple of million of people. Oh, this is Leopold II in Belgium that brutalized, I mean, in Africa, many large populations. Heinrich Himmler is the final solution for the Jews in Germany. Or here in Spain, a guy called Torquemada, he was the head of the Inquisition. And all these guys would be, any psychiatrist today would say that they were basically psychopaths. Okay. Now, okay, psychopaths. There are many psychopaths. Should psychopaths determine what to do in a system? I will put you an example to see what happens. This has become very popular now. What should an autonomous car do? No, I mean, the autonomous car is driving. There is one person to be killed there, 3 people to be killed there. I mean, what should be the decision of the car? Killing the 1, killing the 3? There are many ways of looking into this dilemma. But here you have this case. You have a nurse, and you have a patient coming to the nurse complaining. He's a pain in the neck, the patient. It comes every 3 days. The patient is completely healthy. Completely healthy. Now, next room, there are 5 people that are going to die in the next 24 hours unless I receive an organ, a transplant. The dilemma here is, what should the nurse do? Kill without damaging the organs. Kill the patient and save the other 5, or not kill the patient? How many here would kill the patient? There was one. I mean, you were about to raise your hand. No one would kill the patient?
This patient.
That patient. Yeah. That's healthy patient.
So take the organs and take
And transplant the organs to the other 5, so the other 5 will live.
The guy is a good guy. It's only a pain.
I don't care. I mean, well, he's a pain. No, this guy is a pain. He's coming every 3 days. I mean. So no hands raised here.
It's a good option.
Okay. Well, you can think of these with a beer with your friends and discuss about it. But this was done with psychopaths taken from the prison in Lleida. Okay. Of course, you can imagine in prisons there are many psychopaths. I mean, so with psychopaths there, and the answers were that the psychopaths, 57% of them would kill the patient. No remorse, no problem. 57%, a majority. Which means that psychopaths doesn't mean that they don't want the good for the other guys. I mean, they say, oh, it's nice to save the others. Simply, they don't care about killing that one.
The other 5, they were psychopaths? The 5 guys? This is important.
We don't know. Now, the question is, normal people like you well, you claim yourselves to be normal, you say, no, we would not kill them. But the control group used in that experiment was a 13%. And who were the control group? The nurses. So 13% of the nurses would kill the patient. So be careful when you go to a hospital, okay? I mean, be careful when you go to a hospital. Okay, where am I going with this? Is that individually, humans have a large variety of understanding of things, of what is good, what is bad. And they may take decisions that are completely wrong, is what is Netanyahu now is giving orders to the military, and the military are putting pressure on the poor computer scientists that are doing the machine learning thing to generate lists of names. And so it's a human beings there that are creating the problem. So now the answer to that, what could that be? Okay, is to put humans in control, but not as a single individuals, but as communities. And this comes from the fact that I hope I made clear is that individuals reason and have or take decisions that are different in front of similar situations. So there a level of variety of this discrepancy, right? Also, individuals interpret social and moral values differently. I mean, there was this example of, it's very interesting, sorry for taking more time, well, I will speak less of the other things. But if you take the dilemma of an old person to the right to be killed, or 3 young persons to the left to be killed, in Western analysis, most people would say to kill the old person. Okay? Already lived, is old, okay. In the East, in Asia, they would choose the young ones because they have a tremendous respect for the old people. So the moral dilemmas are answered differently depending on your cultural context. That means that it cannot be an engineer in Palo Alto deciding what the functionality of a system should be. It has to be the communities using the technology that determine how the technology should be used. So we need a social contract between technology, and this is what I think the politicians and we as society should push for, between technology and communities of users. We need that. How do we get to that point? Well, basically, if this wants to work, we need to, well, the social contract is what rights we surrender to technology in order to get something back. You can see here the view that many share about how artificial intelligence will be in the future. And the idea would be there will be billions of systems that will be interacting among themselves and with humans. Okay? For instance, you see here, this is a simulation made with autonomous cars at a crossing without lights. Okay? By communicating among them their speed and position, they can cross with an 80% bigger throughput than with lights. Okay? This is an example of how the interaction and communication may improve things. This is an experiment with different kinds of robots, flying robots, wheeled robots, in an environment in which they communicate depending on the sensors, what they see, what they perceive, and by cooperating among them, they can do more complex tasks than individually. Okay? So the cooperation and interaction is important. Another example is the Internet of Things. It's the different devices and sensors in our homes that by communicating can also improve what we do. So the perspective is that we are going to have billions of systems in which these systems will be among us and will interact with us as a society. Now, if the systems are autonomous, how can we guarantee a certain outcome? Because again, this is coming into, for instance, the autonomous lethal weapons. I mean, how can we control that these things do not damage human beings? Okay, first thing is that values are social constructs. There are no universals, they are context dependent. I hope I convince you of that. There is no individual behavior guarantee when systems are fully autonomous. I mean, there will be always a probability of malfunctioning, of a decision that is not correct. But we can design these socio-technical communities, these billions of systems, interacting among themselves and interacting with humans in a way that is acceptable, the behavior is acceptable. How? The same way we have done with human beings. In human societies, we cannot guarantee that a guy cannot become crazy and start killing people, okay? But we have methods in order to build a certain social order. And that social order is based on two elements from a legal perspective. Repair actions, so if you do something wrong, then you compensate, or punishments, you go to jail. So you will be punished for what you did. Or the economic, that would be the legal approach, or the economic approach with is via incentives. If you want the students to come here to this campus, you need to give incentives to them in order to come here, right? So we can get inspiration from humans' models of responsible behavior to inspire the way we build this socio-technical system. And I could extend on that a lot, but I will just mention one person and one book. I suggest you to read that book. This is Elinor Ostrom. She passed away recently, a couple of years ago. She received the Nobel Prize on Economics in 2012, could be, for her studies on governing the commons. So the idea of her idea was that human societies have defined rules of behavior that have made them very successful. Okay? So it is the community that is self-regulating. This is a very, if you want, very anarchist thinking. But the community is self-regulating that allow them to survive. And she studied many examples. The book is fascinating because it's like, I don't know, 90 different communities in the world, how they have been organized. So I'm getting to the AI thing because, I mean, all this is getting into how do you embed these norms and these values into systems so that the systems, despite doing machine learning, statistical analysis, they understand whether some action violates or doesn't violate the community of users where the decision is going to be implemented. So that's where the AI comes. So Lorta, this is in Valencia, I mean, in the east coast of the peninsula, the Iberian Peninsula. You know, it's a place where there is not much water. Sometimes there is a drought. So it's very important to regulate the way people use water in order for the trees to survive and the families to thrive in the future. So they decided, as in the 15th century, to approve formal regulations on how to share water. They were written. The rules were in use for much earlier than the 15th century, actually. What are the rules about? Maintenance. Who cleans the canals? For how long? Fines. When you do something wrong, how much will you pay to the community? Officials. Who will punish those that misbehave? All these are the elements that constitute the regulations of the community. So they are an example of situatedness, of knowing the environment, being situated in the environment where you are acting. And the thing is that human communities are often very successful. There are many examples of, well, I will not go into much details, but these are examples of community norms. I mean, the last three are very interesting. You can read a few of them. In Switzerland, they have a village where in winter, it is cold. It's not like here. So you need logs to burn and heat your house. So in summer, they send people to cut trees and make piles of logs. Every family has to send one cutter, one person at least, to cut. If the house is very big, maybe two, okay? Now, the piles are made in an equal way. How do you guarantee that the piles will be equal? Because you don't know which pile will be to your house. When the piles are made, there is a lottery. And depending on the lottery, you will get one or another. That's very simple, very clever. It's a rule that determines that nobody will cheat on the piles, making one larger than the other, because you don't know which will be your lot. So human beings are capable of generating this kind of clever rules in order to organize their interactions. And again, what she is proposing is something that I think we should import into the creation of technology, because that would be the creation of norms is part of the machine or the path to machine morality. Now the question is, okay, how do we create the norms? I mean, humans sit down in Valencia, they make a paella, and then they discuss the norms. Okay, that's fine. But I mean, how are we going to do this in our society? Of course, I mean, it will not be that easy. We are not probably all being located in the same place. I mean, we need to find ways to do that. And how to make these norms relate to our human values? I mean, these are the questions. And I will put you two examples. Let me put these, or the next one maybe. This is an application that actually we built. It's called UHelp. It's about mutual help in human communities. And the idea here is you ask others to do tasks for you. For instance, drop off a child at a school, okay? Or pick up a child from a school, these kind of things. Now, here, there is someone saying we need to change our tool. Why? Because in the school, they are asking for some ID of the person that is picking up, for instance, the child. So we need to sign digitally an authorization, something that we can show to the school. That would trigger a discussion saying, oh, but that will be against privacy. I don't want the school to know anything about me. Someone will say the value security is more important. The security of children is more important than the privacy value, because values have different rankings. And so there could be a discussion of that sort. And at the end, reach an agreement. So there is a proposal at the end. I propose a change to user profiles, add ID card to user profiles, because our school requires these signed authorizations to obtain the card number of the sorry, at the beginning. Sorry. The agreement here, ID card information can be added as optional information to profiles. Community members whose ID card information is not provided will not be asked by the assistant to pick up children from schools. Okay. So this is the norms that we agreed upon after some discussion. Then we can vote, and then the system should be able to add that functionality immediately. Not wait for some guy in California in the YouTube factory to introduce that into the system. And that particular thing will work for a particular community of users that need that specific requirement. So that would be the idea of how could we generate technology that can be adapted in an intelligent way to the needs of particular communities. Well, the other example is about pictures and about tagging and so, okay. But you can imagine these things. Okay, now, let's get into my final bit. I still have 5 minutes, probably. Five, okay. As I said, the future is a massive multi-agent system where you will have humans and software agents. Some of these software agents will probably have a body. They will be robots, okay? But this is the future that we expect. Well, you don't like that future? Okay, the thing is that we must be responsible for embedding values and norms. I mean, as I said, a software agent doesn't have any intentionality, any preference, any experience of the world. The software doesn't want anything. So it has to be humans who determine what the values and the norms should be, those the software should abide by. So programmers need to turn values and norms into code. I mean, that's the thing. We could imagine that that is done automatically, but in the meantime, it could be done by programmers, okay? Why do I need to press twice? Now, as usual in AI, artificial intelligence, we always look into other fields in order to get inspiration. Neural networks come from neurology, okay? There is a lot of natural computation that is, to some extent, closer to you. For instance, well, you don't study ants, but ants, for instance, and the way ants move when they found food and how they create paths to the nest, they are minimizing paths. So the same idea of what the ants do with their pheromones on the environment has been used to routing packages in internet. Okay? So there are many inspirations from nature into the way we build algorithms. And in this case, the inspiration comes from the sociologists. I mean, the sociologists, like Schwartz, propose this triangle between values, goals, and purposes. Value is this abstract idea, justice, okay? That is grounded, is made understandable by a computer as goals. okay? Objectives that you may want to reach. And, well, the value serves a purpose. I mean, it could be for human beings, biological needs, social coordination, group survival, okay? These are the, I mean, justice, maybe. Redistribution is good because when you are in a bad situation, you have food, and the next day, everybody, you will help another, but then all the group will survive, okay? So they are evolutionary, they are positive for the group, okay? So they serve a purpose, and the goal basically accomplishes the purpose. I mean, there is this triangle that when we look from the perspective of machines, where the purpose, the biological purpose, doesn't exist, we can at least retain these two elements, the moral values grounded as motivational goals. What is the idea? If we tell the system, let's go. Okay. Once we have values as permanent goals, goals that we want to maintain, then systems can evaluate the situation in the environment. For instance, I want equality of salary. I can have the value equality as a general thing. Then I can make it a bit more concrete. Equality in salaries for men and women. Okay? That is a more concrete thing, because I can go to the payroll, get the numbers, and see whether they are the same or not. In the abstract. Now, I can look at the state of the world and see whether this is satisfied or not. But not only that. I can evaluate whether a certain action goes in the right direction or not. If in a state women are paid 20% less than men, then a pay raise of 15% for women and 5% for men goes in the right direction, because it will reduce the inequality level. So if we tell the system what is the meaning of a value, the system can morally interpret whether certain actions are good or bad. And this is the thing. So humans will be in charge of deciding how a value is grounded, and they will have control over the meaning of those values. This is what humans should do. But apart from that, well, that will be translated. I'm rushing a bit now. Values will be translated into norms. When you're waking up means that I should stop. I know. Okay. Basically, to change the incentive structure and steer the system towards situations that are better viewed in terms of values. Okay, I will just very quickly. This is the only equation I had. I don't have much time to get into it. But basically, well, you can have a look at these recent papers in which we expand on this. This is an example of taxes, in which the values could be equality and fairness, with the following meaning. The Gini measure. You know what the Gini measure is? So you take, you sample the population, salaries, you compute the difference. You sample. And then that gives you a distribution of the differences in salary. And that allows you to make a ranking, for instance, of countries. Countries that are more egalitarian and countries that are less egalitarian, okay? You could do that. And the other one is that cheaters will be ruined. That will be the semantics of fairness. If you cheat, I will fry you with fines and... okay, these are the meaning that humans do, and the normative system is a number of norms. How much should each agent pay, how to redistribute, how often evaders will be detected. That means how much police do you put, and how much the fine evaders will be detected, and then you optimize. What does it mean? You can, given the norms and given the meaning of the values, we can build systems that optimize the decision-making process to make it as close as possible to the value system of humans. And for instance, these are the parameters that, for instance, if you consider the value equality, the system, the optimizer will generate those values. I don't have time to go into the details of this. And the alignment with the value equality of those norms with those parameters will be 0.95, being 1 the maximum. Similarly, if you optimize for fairness, you can find a different set of parameters for 0.93. If you want to optimize for both, what happens? Things are not as good. You stay much lower. What does it mean? Our values are not totally independent. Our values may have some level of contradictions. And the study of the values, how they interact, how they are structured, determines what kind of system we can build. But in any case, if we follow that path, we will be able to understand how morality can be introduced in the systems. There are a number of tools from economics that can be studied, like Shapley values, value compatibility. It's not the same to optimize a system for equality and see how good is that for fairness, than optimizing for fairness and then see how good it is for equality. Okay? So what value is more important determines different behaviors of the system. Okay, I will go into the conclusion. And I think take-home message is, okay, we have AI. AI is pervading everything, but we need to keep an eye on the ethics of what we are doing. That's clear. If we want to build systems that will interact with us, it goes beyond the typical data mining thing that I take data and I analyze them. If we want to go beyond that into the society that is coming, we need to promote ethical behavior, I think, through the crafting and selection of norms, so that the systems understand what are the consequences of its actions. We should keep humans in control because they will need to decide what are the meaning of the values. Values are contextually dependent, are culturally dependent, and that means that the communities of users must determine what the value should be. And, well, value engineering is basically what is trying to do for all that. And that generates millions of scientific questions, as you can see here. You can read a few of them. When are two values similar? How do you define similarity between values? How do you extract a normative position from text? Because humans, we express our positions in text. How do you make that formal so that it can be executed by a computer? How do you learn norms from the behavior you observe in people? I mean, all these questions are very relevant, very important, and very difficult. And, well, in a sense, it's a whole research program for the multi-agent systems community, which is an area within artificial intelligence. It is, and that's it. I think I thank you for inviting me here, and then I'm happy to start a debate or questions.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Fantastic conference. Quite inspiring, I would say, not only from the scientific point of view, but also I think it's quite inspiring for us as members of future or present societies. I mean, there are many challenges in this IA, and you clearly develop them. So now it's time for your questions. I would advertise that all these conferences have been or are being registered. They will be put into YouTube. So if you make questions, please make good questions, especially today, because if you make a controversial question, someone will detect, probably some machine.
I don't know, maybe we are becoming friends of Hamas more and more now, and there will be a bomb destroying your building, so be careful.
Say Hamas. Okay, who wants to make the first question? Yeah.
Hola, mira, voy a hablar en español, pero no me expreso muy bien en inglés, aunque lo entiendo.
Ya la traduzco yo.
Mira, has hablado de que, digamos, en el futuro habrá una mezcla de computadoras y personas, ¿no? Sistemas y personas. Y me da la impresión de que suponemos que las personas del futuro serán las mismas que vivimos en el presente, con los mismos valores, la misma inteligencia, y mientras que las máquinas serán igual que hoy, con las mismas potencialidades. Pero creo que en el futuro los humanos tenemos que pensar sobre qué estamos haciendo con los niños actuales, que serán las personas que vivan en el futuro. ¿Qué influencia está teniendo todos estos sistemas, desde móviles hasta los sistemas de inteligencia artificial, sobre nuestros hijos? Que en el futuro las máquinas serán mucho más inteligentes, ¿tendrá sentido que pongamos en el futuro en manos de las personas que estamos creando hoy la sociedad?
Okay.
¿Entiendes?
You know, I think, more or less. I think, so the question is how can we educate people, new generations, when the technology is evolving very quickly, and that will affect the way people see the environment, the technology, the relationship. So there was this idea, machines will become more and more intelligent. So how do we adapt into that situation? The first thing I would say is that values evolve. So, and that's clearly true. And values will evolve in the future. I mean, for instance, now we are very tolerant to lesbian, gays. We were not in the past. In the 19th century, animals didn't have any rights. But now everybody is thinking that animals have rights. I mean, if you do certain harm to animals, you may go to jail. I mean, so our values as society change. That means that goes very well with what I said. I mean, I think technology will need to adapt to the evolution of values. How do we teach our children? I mean, basically, what we need to tell them is that they need to have a critical thinking with respect to technology. This is very important. That critical thinking must be there. Maybe not what they learn. The competencies they will learn are different. Finland is thinking of stopping teaching handwriting. Some people may say, oh my goodness, how could that be? Well, why not? Maybe in the future handwriting will not make any sense and we are going to have all devices. Maybe it's a competence we don't need or we will not need. But we will still need critical thinking to analyze whether technology abides by our values or not, or is against what we as society want. So I would say the most important thing to teach our children is critical thinking. It's easy? No, it's not easy. But
Sorry.
But the fact that we live in a techno-social society is clear. Everybody here has a mobile, has a computer. You have a presence in the social media. I mean, we already live in a socio-technical society in which we are interacting among us and with many devices. I mean, this is not the future, it's happening.
Hello. Well, thank you very much. You have shown how in the past many psychopaths have been in control, and in every historical moment they have used the tools or the technology that they were available to indeed apply those psychopath effects on society. Yeah. So now there is a new scenario in which there is a new tool which is even more powerful, and it seems that psychopaths are still in control, yes, and we are seeing it every day. Yeah. So in your opinion, do you think that this new tool is different in a sense in which it can take communities to actually take decisions for the first time in a long historical time? Or do you think that it's still quite young as well as the other technologies, and still the psychopaths will have even a more impact, or they can have an even larger impact on how we're doing things?
I think they are not good news. Psychopaths will continue ruling many parts of the world, and the world is not going in the right direction, as we know, for the votings that will happen in the next years and the wars that are active at this moment. I think we as society, we need to promote I would say, the development of tools by ourselves. We need to go in the direction of empowering communities to determine the functionalities, but still, the only way in which we could stop these psychopaths ruling the world is by our actions, by putting pressure on them. And there are some cases, examples of success. For instance, human cloning, that was forbidden and is not being developed by anyone. This multi-grenade bombing, I don't remember what's the name of that thing. I mean, we managed to prohibit that. Spain was a big producer of those weapons. They are not produced anymore. So there are some steps in the right direction, but we need much more pressure on the powers in order to stop it. I don't have a solution to that. I mean, we can... But the psychopaths are in control in many cases.
Just wondering, is AI a tool that can help us to go into the other direction as a tool itself? Do you think that it has that power?
It has the potential. It has the potential.
And in which way do you see it?
I see it in the way in which we use, for instance, tools that are not controlled by these big companies, but are developed by communities of developers. I would say things like blockchain, things like the federated networks, federated learning, this kind of technology goes in the right direction. But it is us who has to decide whether we want to use that or the comfort of Google tools. It's difficult, it's very difficult. But we need to keep momentum in putting pressure in the parliaments and to the politicians to try and revert some of the bad effects of these, or the bad uses of this technology. But again, I don't have the solution.
The question?
It's the same with the bomb. I mean, for many Americans, when they threw the bomb in Hiroshima, they said, oh, it's a big bomb. At that moment, they didn't realize what was that. So it was a big bomb that stopped the war. It's really the bomb. Yeah.
I know that there are some AI companies that are being funded by the armies from some states, and they're making the AI technology with funds that come from war. So it's also been used for war, as it was the nuclear bomb in the past and all of this stuff. So yeah, that's also scary.
AI is being used for war, yeah, clearly.
So a big part of this community is in the university, so we are very, very scary about what artificial intelligence is doing in education. I always think about artificial intelligence that something is negative for us, but I was talking to you before and you're telling me that how artificial intelligence can be also used in education in a positive way.
Oh, yeah.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah. I mean, in education there are many applications. Well, the main application of AI to education is in adaptive learning. So there are systems that have been used. For instance, in the States there was a famous one called Alex, in which they had like 12 million students. And basically, what they were doing is analyzing the sequence of learning of students and making a model of, remember what I said of AI? Learning, reasoning, modeling. They are building a model of what the student knows and what the student doesn't know. And depending on that, and depending on the knowledge of a particular subject, I don't know, algebra in first course of a career, of a bachelor's degree. So you know the concept that the student knows by the answers the student has made to certain tests and questions. You put the most adequate next exercise in order to learn a concept and make progress. By using that technology, people have increased their results in a percentage that is very high. Using 2 hours a week for 3 months using Alex, there have been increases of the order of a 20–25% in the overall outcome. In China, they are experimenting. There is a debate now. There is a recent paper in the MIT review about the situation in China. They are perhaps moving more and more into a system in which there is a lot of adaptive education. Why? Probably because in China the teachers are of very low quality. I mean, they don't have enough good quality teachers. So they are probably moving into a situation in which adaptive learning through computers will be the norm and not an exception to the rule. But apart from adaptive education, you have ways of helping in collaborative learning. For instance, we developed tools to split a group like this into ideal 3-people teams in order to work together, taking into account the psychological traits, the competencies of every individual, the gender, the motivations. Then you build really good teams that work well together. So this could be also an application. Systems that have been developed to detect early whether a student has dyslexia problems through a game, for instance. Or tools and robots to help autistic children to socialize better. I mean, because they interact much better with a screen than with a human being. So these kind of tools that also look into the emotions of the students and see how to adapt the interaction to the emotional situation of the person. So there are plenty of applications that are very good in order to improve the outcome in education. I could talk another hour for that, but you know. Again, of course, then you have the students that they go to ChatGPT and then they cut the thing and they copy it and they, okay, of course, and then the teachers.
For what understood for what you're saying is ChatGPT is not artificial intelligence.
Well, it is artificial intelligence. I mean, because it's based on building a massive model of language, in the sense that it learns the model of language. Okay, so it knows what comes after a sequence. It's using learning, and in that sense, is artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Because when you mention about the three main characteristics of artificial intelligence, that was learning, reasoning, and modeling,
Yep.
is all. I mean, anything that is learning is artificial intelligence,
Yes.
even if it is not modeling.
So you can have only one of them at the time. Okay.
Any other question? Yeah, I would like to ask you, do you think that in our type of professions, I mean experimental science, the artificial intelligence can be considered as a kind of threat? Because in some other professions, many people is scared about the...
Actually, there is a project you can look called Future House, if you look for it. The plan is to build an AI, to build a model for a scientist. So why do we need humans to do science? Let's do AIs do science. So look at Future House. It's very, very scary. We can all get unemployed very soon. Well, if we can go to the Caribbean and enjoy life, I mean, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, it is a fantastic tool for many of the activities we do. I mean, in almost every field. I mean, if you are a doctor, who would say no to a system that is capable of diagnosing cancers with a 95% precision? I mean, how could you not use that? I mean, so I think in science we need to use the tools. For instance, in proteomics, there is a system AlphaFold. Now, to build the dimensional structure of a protein, it could take 3 months, and people will go to the CERN and do all sorts of experiments to find these three dimensions. Now, with AlphaFold, you can have that in seconds or in a minute. So how can you continue doing the research in the same way without using AlphaFold?
Yeah.
And that's the same for many other areas. I mean, we need to adapt and adopt. Yeah.
Yeah, and survive. And so now please stay for a while, because I have to tell you a couple of things. After my talk,